Hi, I'm Kristen Anderson, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am the Ashland Branch Manager of Jackson County Library Services, and this is the July Read This. If you haven't noticed, we're in the summer now, and we've been talking internally about beach reads, and I thought I would take this time to deconstruct what a beach read is and kind of give you a sneak peek into what's going on in the background when we think about how to do reader's advisory in kind of big, like, trend arcs that are related to seasonality. So, what's a beach read? Beach read is something you've heard about. I actually looked it up, and it's kind of been around, a term that's been around. It's not really old term. It's been around since like the 90s and like common conversation. And we kind of all know what a beach read feels like. And I looked for some words that I could use that would be evocative of what the books that you would look for in a beach read were. And these were some of the ones I found. A sense of carefree joy. And then there were other pieces of definitions that, like, some things are a little darker. So, for example, compulsively readable is something that we look for in a vacation read. And so when we're thinking about a beach read, we're thinking about something you want to read, like, by the pool, or like when you're sitting in a lounge chair on the beach, or just generally in vacation, which turns out to be kind of an interesting thing to think about when we live in a place where people do come for vacations, whether it be outdoor stuff or to see theater. So, but compulsively readable was where I thought I'd start. And that makes me think of some of the recent-ish trend of thrillers that you see. So the one that I read most recently that is also a brand new release is Sally Hepworth's Darling Girls. And it's set in Australia and is about a group of 3 girls who were raised together in a foster home and have some very dark kind of relationships with the past that their foster living situation left them with, but they are going back as older adults to try and help solve a mystery of bones found under the house where they were fostered. And that is a good example of a compulsively readable book, sometimes with unreliable narrator, like what's really going on here stuff. A couple of other ones that are brand new, that are by authors who are kind of known for this type of book, are One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware and The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. And those are ones that have wait lists. In fact, The Midnight Feast has the highest holds ratio that we have in the system right now, which means that so many people are waiting for it that we probably need to order more titles. So that's a popular one. So those are ones that you're going to need to probably put a hold and wait for a little bit on. I always encourage people to look at formats, though, because if you're willing to read an ebook versus a physical book, like, sometimes there's a line for one and not the other, and it's really hard to predict which is which. Sometimes the physical book is easier to get than the ebook. It just depends. Another characteristic of a beach read is a summer setting, and that would mean set by the beach, set by the lake, set in a vacation setting, and like a classic example of that is Emily Henry's beach read, which kind of tells you what it is in the title. One I picked up off of the bestseller list just yesterday is Sandwich by Catherine Newman, which, if you look at the cover, gives serious vacation home vibes. And Ellen Hildebrand, who is pretty much known for beach reads, Swan Song is also on the bestseller list right now and just came out. Romance is another popular category in the beach read category. And one that I just finished that I wanted to draw attention to is Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. Kevin Kwan wrote Crazy Rich Asians, that trilogy, and also has since been doing some really interesting Crazy Rich Asians-esque books that are also retellings of classic novels. The current one is a Trollope novel, Dr. Thorne. He also did A Room with a View a few years ago, and those are super fun. And also, Here We Go Again is a good example of a romance you might want to check out by Alison Cochrane, and A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Those are all recent romance books that have been well reviewed and popular, and might be worth checking out. Then we've got low stakes. Low stakes is another way of saying cozy, the mood cozy. And cozy is more often applied to mysteries, but more recently it's been applied to other genres as well. And we've done some blog posts about cozy. Legends and Lattes is the obvious place to start because it does have a subtitle, which is a novel of high fantasy and low stakes. So you know from the beginning that it's a low stakes. Low stakes means they're talking about things that happen close to home as opposed to like big, sweeping, big picture things. Legends and Lattes is a high fantasy that is fantasy characters, an orc starting up a coffee shop. And other cozy things that you might want to try this summer, A Smoking Bun, which is local author Ellie Alexander's 18th Bake Shop Mystery. Bake Shop Mysteries are modeled after Mix, and they are set in Ashland. So we love our Bake Shop Mysteries here. You can also find cozy sci-fi, and for that I'd point to The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malika Older. That one's been nominated for a bunch of the Sci-Fi Fantasy Awards in the current awards cycle. And this is where we put kind of a record scratch because marketing asked us to do lists with off-kilter beach reads. So things that were kind of beach read adjacent, but like obviously also not beach reads. And I did one that was kind of big, meaty novels with big ideas in it, and it's a weird list. And that make you think and that require some labor to get through. So like House of Leaves by Daniel Lusky is on the list, and Gravity's Rainbow by Pynchon, and Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, but also some just big, chunky, long books that are great. They're all good books, but they're definitely not beach reads. But one of my colleagues, Nancy, said, I would like to do a list with just all slasher titles in it. And so I give you our summer slasher titles, which is why I'm wearing my Stephen King t-shirt today. And I'm gonna start with Stephen Graham Jones. Summer is also a really great time to release new horror novels. This is when we get new Stephen King books typically. We just got a new short story collection from him called You Like It Darker. I've read that, it's great. If you read and enjoyed Cujo, there's a story in it that has characters from Cujo like decades out from the story, which is always fun to revisit. And he does that every once in a while in his sprawling Stephen King universe. But then that's not a slasher. The slasher titles are ones that, so slasher, if you know slashers, you know slashers, but they tend to draw from horror movie tropes. And Stephen Graham Jones is one who's known for that. In fact, his trilogy that starts with My Heart is a Chainsaw, sometimes called the Jade Daniels trilogy. Sometimes you might see on social media, well, if you follow book social media, you'll see it, that Jade Daniels is my final girl t-shirts, and that is a reference to Stephen Graham Jones and his series that starts with My Heart is a Chainsaw. And it's super meta, and like, I can appreciate it as a horror novel. The people who will appreciate it the most, though, are people who are also have deep knowledge and understanding, kind of an encyclopedic knowledge of the slasher movie genre, because what it does is it uses the rules of horror movies to kind of predict what's going to happen next in the plot, and the main character definitely knows all of those tropes and is using those tropes to kind of predict the next outcome. But Jade Daniels is what's called a final girl, and a final girl in a slasher movie, like if you know slasher movies, you do not need me to explain this to you, but if you don't watch horror movies, a final girl is like that last girl. So Jamie Lee Curtis, final girl, like the last girl alive in the horror novel, Jamie Lee Curtis from Halloween. There's also a book called The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Exactly what you think it is, a whole bunch of final girls getting together to work out their issues. That's fun. And then you've got a YA one called You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, which also works on the final girl trope. And for new horror, Paul Tremblay has a new one out that I haven't read yet called Horror Movie, that I imagine will have some similar stuff going on in it. And Stephen Graham Jones has a new teen one that fits into this category that's coming out in the fall called I Was a Teenage Slasher. So check out one of those. As far as other anti-beach reads, I'm going to show you, or I'm going to talk through how to find some of our lists, but there is a list that we've curated that goes along with these videos every time. You can search using our catalog. There's a pull down menu to the far right that you can pull down and select list, and then use words that you know are going to be in the list title, and you can give you more than you want, but you'll be able to find what you're looking for. So for example, if you searched for beach, you would be able to find all of the lists I'm talking about here, and we'll have that showing on the screen while I'm talking when they edit this video. So there's anti-beach reads. That's the one I was talking about that had all the big, dense, meaty fiction. And then I also wanted to point to, since we're talking about horror, one of my colleagues, as we've been talking about all of this, pointed out that the Horror Writers Association does a summer scares list. And I've created a list for the 2024 summer scares list. So if you want any of the titles on that list, and that list has books from adult, YA, and middle grade categories on it. So that's what I've got today. We spend a lot of time working on these lists so that you can discover books that you might not have found before, and we would love for you to use those. We know that they are used, but not everybody even knows that they're there. So I thought I'd talk about that a little bit. And I hope that you are keeping track of your reading this summer in Beanstack, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.